The massive chamber floated in the void between stars, a monument to alien power that had stood for 10,000 years. Inside, 12 different species sat around a circular table that glowed with soft blue light. Each race had ruled their corner of the galaxy long before humans had even learned to make fire. The Zephyrian delegate raised one of its crystal arms. Light danced through its transparent body as it spoke in a voice like breaking glass. The human problem grows worse each day. They spread like a disease across our galaxy. Murmurs of agreement echoed from the other council members. The Nexari Queen's compound eyes focused on the holographic display showing human colonies scattered across hundreds of star systems. Her hive mind processed the information with cold efficiency. In just 200 years, they have claimed more worlds than the Kalari Empire conquered in 2 millennia. They breed too fast, added the Luminian representative, its energy form pulsing with irritation. They adapt too quickly. They ask too many questions about things that do not concern them. Admiral Sarah Chen watched these proceedings from the observation deck above. She stood perfectly still in her crisp blue uniform, her dark eyes taking in every detail. As Earth's military liaison to the Council, she had seen this moment coming for months. The other human diplomats beside her shifted nervously, but Chen remained calm. Ambassador Williams, Earth's senior diplomat, had been trying to speak for the past hour. Each time he raised his hand, another council member would interrupt with complaints about human expansion, human curiosity, or human refusal to accept proper guidance from their betters. Honored council members, Williams finally managed to say during a brief pause. Humanity seeks only peaceful coexistence. Our colonies bring prosperity to empty worlds. We trade fairly with all species. We have never threatened silence. The Voidwalker's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. The ancient being existed as pure thought wrapped in shadow, older than any other race present. You speak of peace while your kind spreads across the galaxy like fire. You colonize systems we marked for future development. You mine asteroids we intended to harvest in 1,000 years. The human delegation exchanged glances. These aliens planned centuries ahead and expected the galaxy to wait for them. They saw human expansion not as natural growth but as theft of their future property. The Torvan delegate, a massive creature covered in scales and battle scars, slammed one clawed hand on the table. Enough talk. The solution is simple. We implement Containment Protocol 7. Chen's jaw tightened slightly. She had read about Protocol 7 in classified intelligence reports. It was the Council's standard response to problematic species. Forced relocation to a small area of space, followed by strict monitoring and control. The Crystalline Chancellor, leader of the Zephyrian Empire, nodded slowly. The protocol has never failed. We contained the Kalari after they became too aggressive. We contained the Morgoth after they developed dangerous technologies. Now we contain the humans. The terms are simple, announced the Nexari Queen, her voice carrying the weight of billions of minds speaking as one. All human colonies beyond 50 light-years from your home star must be abandoned within 1 galactic standard year. Any human presence outside this boundary after the deadline will be removed by force. William stood up quickly. Honored Council, you cannot be serious. Those colonies house over 3 billion people. They have built lives, families, entire civilizations. They built them in space that was not theirs to claim. The Voidwalker replied coldly. Your species will learn to accept boundaries, or your species will learn the consequences of refusing them. The vote was swift and decisive. 12 ancient races, each commanding fleets that numbered in the thousands, each controlling technology that could destroy planets, voted unanimously to cage humanity in a tiny corner of the galaxy. Chen watched it all with the same calm expression she had worn during the worst battles of her career. She had fought pirates in the Outer Rim, led rescue missions through asteroid fields, and commanded fleets against rebel factions. But this was different. This wasn't about military tactics or strategic objectives. This was about survival. As the council members filed out of the chamber, many cast dismissive glances at the human delegation. The Torvan commander actually laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. 1 year, humans. 1 year to crawl back to your little corner and stay there. The Zephyrian delegate paused near the observation deck. Its crystal body rang like a bell as it spoke. Your species shows promise, but you are children playing with adult tools. Accept the wisdom of your elders. Accept containment. Accept your place. Ambassador Williams turned to Chen as the chamber emptied. His face was pale, his hands shaking slightly. Sarah, what do we do? How can we possibly relocate 3 billion people? And what about the colonies that have been established for generations? New Geneva, Harmony Station, the mining worlds in the Kepler sector. Chen finally moved, turning away from the window where alien ships hung in the void like sleeping giants. We don't relocate anyone, Ambassador. But the Council just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Chen's voice was quiet, but Williams had known her long enough to recognize the dangerous tone. They think we're children who will cry and obey when the adults tell us what to do. Williams stared at her. You're talking about war. Sarah, they have 12 fleets. 12 different species with technology we're still trying to understand. The Zephyrians can turn matter into energy with their minds. The Nexari fight as one organism across entire star systems. The Voidwalkers can manipulate space-time itself. Yes, Chen said simply. But they have one weakness. What weakness? Chen smiled, and for the first time since entering the council chamber, she looked genuinely pleased. They think they know us. They've watched us for 200 years and decided we're just another species to be controlled. They see our diplomacy and mistake it for weakness. They see our questions and mistake them for ignorance. She pulled out a small communication device and entered a complex code. They don't understand that humans have been preparing for this conversation since the day we met them. Williams watched as Chen's message disappeared into the quantum communication network that connected all human worlds. What did you just do? I sent 3 words to every human military commander in the galaxy. Chen turned back to the window, where the Council's ships were already beginning to disperse to carry news of humanity's containment to their respective governments. What 3 words? Chen's smile grew wider. Protocol 7 confirmed. Williams felt a chill run down his spine. That's not a distress signal. That's not a call for evacuation. No, Chen agreed. It's the activation code for Operation Lazarus. As they watched, the first human ship appeared in the distance, a simple cargo vessel heading toward the outer rim. To the aliens, it looked like the beginning of humanity's retreat. They had no idea it was actually the beginning of humanity's counterattack. The Council had spent 1 hour deciding humanity's fate. They were about to discover that humanity had spent 200 years preparing for this moment. The emergency session in Earth's capital had been going for 6 hours. President Marcus Torres sat at the head of a table filled with the most powerful humans in the galaxy. Military commanders, colonial governors, intelligence chiefs, and industrial leaders all waited for his decision. The large display screen showed the Council's ultimatum in 12 different alien languages, all saying the same thing: submit or die. They gave us 1 year, said Governor Patricia Mills from New Geneva Colony. My people have been on that world for 80 years. They've built cities, farms, universities. You can't ask 3 billion people to just abandon everything. General Harrison from the Mars Defense Force nodded grimly. Even if we wanted to comply, the logistics are impossible. We don't have enough ships to move that many people, and where would we put them? Earth is already crowded. Torres listened to the arguments, but his mind was already made up. He had been president for 6 years, and in that time he had seen humanity accomplish impossible things. They had terraformed dead worlds, built cities in asteroid belts, and created a civilization that spanned hundreds of star systems. Now 12 alien species wanted to crush all of that because humans had grown too successful. Admiral Chen, Torres said quietly. Give me your assessment. Chen stood up and activated her own display. Star charts appeared showing the current positions of Council fleets throughout the galaxy. The Council thinks they've given us an ultimatum. What they've actually done is declare war on humanity and given us 1 year to prepare for it. Murmurs went around the table. Director Walsh of Colonial Intelligence leaned forward. Admiral, the Council has ships we can't match. Their technology is designed to fight other Council species, Chen interrupted. They've been fighting the same way for thousands of years. Massive fleets, direct confrontations, formal battle lines. They fight like ancient nobility having a duel. She changed the display to show human ship designs. We fight like humans. We adapt, we improvise, we use every advantage we can find. More importantly, we've been studying them for 200 years. The president nodded slowly. Show them. Chen's expression grew serious. Every diplomatic mission, every trade agreement, every cultural exchange, they all had a secondary purpose. We've been mapping their fleet positions, studying their technology, identifying their weaknesses. We know where every major council installation is located. We know their patrol routes, their supply lines, their communication networks. Senator Reynolds from the Luna colonies looked shocked. You're saying we've been spying on them this entire time? We've been preparing, Torres replied. The first rule of human diplomacy: hope for the best, plan for the worst. Chen activated another display showing mining operations throughout human space. The council thinks our mining ships are just commercial vessels. They don't know that every asteroid harvester can be converted into a kinetic weapon platform within 6 hours. Every cargo ship has hidden weapon bays. Every civilian habitat has defensive systems disguised as industrial equipment. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Director Walsh spoke first. How long has this been going on? Since first contact, Torres said simply. We learned early that the Council sees younger species as either useful servants or dangerous threats. We've been making sure they saw us as useful for as long as possible, while preparing for the day they decided we were dangerous. Chen brought up operational details on her display. Operation Lazarus has 3 phases. Phase 1 begins immediately. We start evacuating non-essential personnel from border colonies while moving military assets into position. The Council will think we're complying with their demands. Phase 2? Asked General Harrison. We test their response. When their enforcement fleets arrive at colonies they think should be empty, they'll find surprises waiting for them. Governor Mills looked troubled. You're talking about turning my people's homes into battlefields. Your people volunteered for this when they signed their colonial charters. Torres reminded her gently. Every human who moves to the frontier knows they might have to fight for their new home someday. Chen nodded. Phase 3 is the real operation. Once we've shown the Council that we won't submit quietly, we take the war to them. She changed the display to show Council space. Red markers appeared on dozens of worlds. The Council's greatest weakness is that they've never faced an enemy that doesn't fight by their rules. They'll expect us to defend our territory and wait for them to attack. Instead, we're going to strike at their infrastructure, their supply lines, their economic centers. That's thousands of light years from human space, observed Admiral Kane from the Jupiter fleet. How do we get there without them detecting us? Chen smiled. The same way we've been gathering intelligence for 2 centuries. Commercial vessels, diplomatic missions, cultural exchanges. The Council has gotten used to seeing human ships throughout their territory. They won't notice a few more until it's too late. President Torres stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, the Council has made a fatal error. They think this is about territory or resources. They don't understand that this is about something much more important. He activated the wall display to show images from human colonies across the galaxy. Children playing in alien sunlight. Farmers growing crops on worlds that had been dead rocks a generation ago. Scientists making discoveries that advanced all of galactic civilization. This is about freedom, Torres continued. The right to live where we choose, build what we dream, become what we're capable of becoming. The Council wants to put us in a cage not because we've done anything wrong, but because we've done everything right. The room was completely quiet now. These people had spent their lives building human civilization among the stars. The thought of giving it all up was unthinkable. I need to know, Torres said. Are we united in this? Because if we do this, there's no turning back. We'll be at war with 12 species that have ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. One by one, every person in the room stood up. Governor Mills was the last to rise, but when she did, her voice was firm. My people didn't build New Geneva to hand it over to aliens who think they know better than we do how to live our lives. Torres nodded and activated his communication system. Within minutes, his message was being broadcast to every human world in the galaxy. Citizens of humanity, he began, looking directly into the camera. Today, the Galactic Council has demanded that we abandon our homes, our dreams, and our future. They want us to accept that we are children who must obey our alien betters. He paused. Letting the words sink in across hundreds of worlds, we decline. The message was simple, but every human in the galaxy understood what it meant. They weren't backing down. They weren't giving up. They were going to fight. As the broadcast ended, Chen was already implementing the first phase of Operation Lazarus. Across human space, cargo ships began changing course. Mining vessels started new excavation patterns, and civilian habitats quietly activated systems that had been waiting in standby mode for decades. The Council had given humanity 1 year to submit, Humanity had just declared that 1 year would be enough to win. The Nexari War Queen Zesika felt satisfaction pulse through the hive mind as her fleet dropped out of hyperspace near New Geneva. 47 ships of the line, each carrying enough firepower to sterilize a continent, hung in perfect formation around her flagship. This would be simple. The humans had been given 8 months to evacuate this colony, and intelligence reports showed massive cargo ships leaving the system every week. The few stubborn holdouts who remained would see the fleet and surrender immediately. "Scan the planet," Zesika commanded. Her compound eyes focused on the tactical display as her ships spread out in standard council formation, a show of overwhelming force designed to discourage resistance. "War Queen," reported her sensor officer, "we are detecting approximately 50,000 humans still on the planet's surface. No orbital defenses, no military vessels larger than patrol craft. Perfect." Zesika opened a communication channel to the planet. "Humans of New Geneva, you have violated containment protocol. 7. You have 30 minutes to begin evacuation procedures or face the consequences." The response came from someone calling himself Governor Mills. His voice sounded tired but not afraid. "This is our home. We're not leaving." Zesika clicked her mandibles in annoyance. "You have seen our fleet. You cannot resist. Comply now and your lives will be spared." "We've seen your fleet," Mills replied. "Have you seen ours?" The War Queen was about to ask what he meant when her sensor officer suddenly stiffened. "War Queen, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the asteroid belt. The mining operation." The first kinetic projectile hit the Nexari dreadnought Sovereign Mind before anyone could react. What had appeared to be a simple asteroid being processed by mining equipment was actually a 10-million-ton chunk of iron and nickel accelerated to 15% of light speed. The impact tore through the dreadnought's shields. Like they weren't there. The ship broke apart in a brilliant explosion that lit up the entire system. "Evasive maneuvers," Zesika screamed, but it was too late. The asteroid belt erupted with activity as dozens of mining platforms revealed their true nature. Each one launched another asteroid, and each asteroid had been fitted with guidance systems that turned chunks of rock into precision weapons. The Nexari fleet tried to scatter, but they had maintained tight formation for maximum intimidation effect. Now that same formation made them perfect targets. 5 more ships died in the first volley. "Return fire," Zesika ordered. "Destroy those platforms." Her gunners opened up with plasma cannons and particle beams, but the mining platforms were already moving. What had looked like stationary industrial equipment suddenly revealed hidden thruster systems. They scattered like startled insects, using the asteroid field for cover. "War Queen," her tactical officer reported with confusion in his voice. "The mining ships are launching fighters. Mining ships don't carry fighters." Zesika replied automatically. "These do." She watched in growing horror as the human cargo vessels opened hidden bays. Swarms of small, fast attack craft poured out, each one carrying heavy missiles designed to crack asteroids. They swarmed toward her fleet like angry insects, but the real shock came when the planet itself joined the battle. The agricultural processing centers on New Geneva's surface opened up to reveal massive railgun installations. Streams of hypervelocity projectiles reached out across space to hammer her ships. "How is this possible?" Zesika demanded. "Intelligence showed this was a farming colony." Her communications officer looked up from his station. "War Queen, we're receiving a transmission from one of the human fighters. Put it through." A human voice came over the speakers, calm and professional. "Nexari fleet, this is Admiral Sarah Chen aboard the dreadnought Indomitable. You are ordered to surrender immediately." Zesika stared at her displays. "There are no human dreadnoughts in this system." "Check your long-range sensors," Chen replied. The War Queen's compound eyes went wide as her sensors detected massive ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The human fleet had been waiting in the outer darkness, invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. "Impossible," Zesika whispered. "The Council tracks all human military movements. We know the location of every human warship." "You know the location of every ship we wanted you to know about," Chen corrected. "For 200 years you've been seeing what we wanted you to see." More ships appeared on sensors. Not just a few vessels, but dozens of them. Heavy cruisers disguised as cargo haulers dropped their false hull plating. Destroyers that had been masquerading as research vessels activated weapon systems. Even some of the civilian evacuation ships that had been leaving the system for months suddenly turned around and revealed themselves as troop. Transport Jessica realized with growing horror that the humans hadn't been evacuating New Geneva at all. They had been reinforcing it while making it look like a retreat. "You've been planning this," she said. "We've been planning for this exact situation since the day we met the council," Chen replied. "You want to know why 50,000 humans stayed on New Geneva? Because they volunteered to be bait." The human admiral's voice carried a note of pride. Governor Mills and his people knew that if they stayed, the council would send a fleet to remove them. They knew that fleet would expect to find a defenseless farming colony. They were willing to risk their lives to give us this opportunity. Jessica looked around her bridge. Half her fleet was already gone. The survivors were scattered and confused, trying to fight an enemy that didn't behave according to any tactical doctrine in the council's databases. "This is madness," she transmitted. "We are the Nexari. We have ruled space for 3,000 years. We do not lose to primitives who learned to fly between stars yesterday." "Your mistake," Chen replied, "is thinking we're primitives. Your ships are more advanced than ours, yes. Your weapons are more powerful. Your shields are stronger. But you've been fighting the same enemies for so long that you've forgotten how to adapt." A new wave of human fighters swept over the Nexari formation. These weren't the converted mining craft from earlier. These were purpose-built military fighters that moved like nothing Jessica had ever seen. "Your ships are designed to fight other council fleets in formal battle lines," Chen continued. "Our ships are designed to fight whatever we encounter, however we need to fight it. Your pilots follow 3,000-year-old tactical doctrines. Our pilots improvise. The Battle of New Geneva lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the Nexari had lost 31 ships out of 47. The survivors limped back to council space carrying news that would shake the galaxy. Humanity had not only refused to submit, they had won their first major battle against a council. Fleet Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as her ships moved into formation around New Geneva. The planet's surface was scarred but intact. The asteroid mining platforms were already returning to their positions, ready to resume their dual role as industrial facilities and defensive weapons. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving messages from human colonies throughout the frontier. They're all asking the same question, which is, when do we take the fight to them?" Chen smiled. "Tell them Phase 3 begins immediately." She turned to her tactical display, which now showed not just the local system but the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated council military installations, supply depots, and industrial centers. It's time the council learned what human warfare really looks like. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in its 10,000-year history. Representatives from 12 species sat in stunned silence as holographic displays showed the devastation at New Geneva. The crystalline Chancellor's light pulsed with barely controlled rage. 47 ships, 47 of our finest vessels destroyed by mining equipment and cargo haulers. The Voidwalker's shadow form rippled with confusion. "Our intelligence reports were completely wrong. The humans weren't evacuating. They were preparing a trap." "How?" demanded the Torvan fleet commander, his scales scraping against his chair as he leaned forward. "How did they hide an entire battle fleet? Our sensors monitored every human ship movement for months. High Admiral Kethmar of the Luminian." Collective provided the answer, his energy form dimming with embarrassment. "Because we were only looking for ships that matched our database of human military vessels. We didn't scan the cargo ships, the miners, the civilian transports. We assumed they were what they appeared to be." The Nexari Queen Jessica's compound eyes focused on the tactical replay. "They have been lying to us from the beginning. Every ship we cataloged, every base we monitored, every fleet we tracked, it was all deception." The Zephyrian Chancellor's crystal body rang like a struck bell. 31 ships lost at New Geneva, but that's not the worst news. Tell them about the raids." Admiral Kethmar's form flared brighter. "In the past 72 hours, human forces have struck 17 different targets across Council space. The Kepler Mining Consortium's main refinery, destroyed. The Vegan trade routes, completely disrupted. 3 Torvan supply depots, captured intact." He paused, his energy flickering with what might have been fear. "They're not fighting like any species we've encountered before. They don't try to hold territory. They strike fast, cause maximum damage, and disappear before we can respond. The Torvan fleet commander slammed his clawed fist on the table. Coward tactics, honorless raids in the dark. Effective tactics, corrected the Void Walker grimly. They have studied our response patterns. They know exactly how long it takes our fleets to reach any given system. They're always gone before we arrive. The Kalari ambassador, representing one of the Council's client species, spoke up nervously. Honored Council members, perhaps it would be wise to reconsider Protocol 7. The humans have proven they will not submit easily. Silence! The Chancellor's voice could shatter crystal. We do not negotiate with primitives who refuse to know their place. But even as he spoke, new reports were arriving. Human raiding fleets had hit the Nexari crystal farms that powered their hive mind communications. Luminian energy collection stations were going dark across 3 sectors. Zephyrian trade convoys were being intercepted and captured with clockwork precision. Queen Zessica accessed the shared memories of her hive mind, reviewing the battle at New Geneva from every angle. There is something else. The human admiral, Chen. She knew our tactical formations, our ship capabilities, our response protocols. She predicted exactly how we would deploy our fleet. Impossible, the Torvan fleet commander growled. Our tactical databases are classified above the highest levels. And yet she knew, the Queen replied. Which means their intelligence network is far more advanced than we believed. The Voidwalker's form grew darker. How long have they been watching us? How much do they know? As if summoned by his question, every display in the chamber suddenly changed. Instead of Council tactical data, they now showed a simple image. A human woman in a military uniform standing on what appeared to be a ship's bridge. Honored Council members, Admiral Sarah Chen said calmly. I thought it was time we had a proper conversation. Security alarms screamed throughout the chamber. The Zephyrian Chancellor's form blazed with light. Impossible. This chamber is protected by quantum encryption, psionic barriers, temporal shielding, all of which we've been studying for 200 years, Chen interrupted. Did you really think we attended all those cultural exchanges and diplomatic receptions just for the food? The Torvan fleet commander was on his feet, reaching for his weapon, but Chen's voice stopped him. I wouldn't do that, fleet commander. Your personal security detail has been replaced. The massive alien spun around to see his bodyguards standing motionless, their weapons pointed at the floor. Their eyes had the glazed look of people under some form of mental control. How? He began. Neural interface implants introduced through modified food additives over the past 6 months, Chen explained matter-of-factly. We've been very careful to ensure they only activate when we need them. Your guards are unharmed and will recover completely. The Queen's hive mind buzzed with panic. You've been poisoning us? We've been preparing, Chen corrected, for exactly this conversation. You see, Council members, you made a fundamental error when you decided to contain humanity. She gestured, and the displays changed to show star charts of the entire galaxy. Human positions were marked in blue, Council territories in red. But now there were also green markers scattered throughout Council space. Markers that were appearing in systems the humans supposedly had never visited. You assumed we were like other species you've contained, Chen continued, species that fight for territory, for resources, for their own survival. But humans don't just fight for themselves. The green markers multiplied, appearing on world after world. The Council members stared in growing horror as they realized what they were seeing. Every species you've oppressed over the centuries, every client race forced to serve your empires, every colony world that dreams of independence, they've all been waiting for someone strong enough to stand up to you. The Kalari ambassador was trembling. You've been talking to the subject races? We've been liberating them, Chen replied. Did you know that the Rillan people on Kepler 7 have maintained an underground resistance for 300 years? Or that the Ventai have been secretly developing their own technology despite your restrictions? The displays now showed green markers on hundreds of worlds. Entire sectors of Council space were lighting up with rebellion. This is impossible, the Chancellor said. We control those worlds. We monitor all communications, all travel. You control the governments you installed, Chen corrected. You monitor the communications you know about. But oppressed people find ways to communicate that their oppressors never imagine. Admiral Kethmar's energy form was flickering rapidly. The mining facility attacks, the supply depot raids, they weren't just human operations. Very good, Chen said approvingly. Turns out a lot of your subject species know their own worlds better than your occupation forces do. They know exactly where your weak points are, exactly when your patrols change shifts, exactly which of your officers can be bribed or blackmailed. The Void Walker's voice carried a note of something that might have been fear. How long has this been planned? Since first contact, Chen replied simply. The moment we learned about the Council, we knew this day would come. Either you would try to control us, or we would have to free the galaxy from your control. Free the galaxy? The Chancellor's light pulsed with rage. We brought order to chaos. We ended the wars between species. We created peace. You created the peace of the graveyard, Chen replied. The peace of submission. The peace of people too afraid to dream of something better. She leaned forward and for the first time her calm mask slipped to show the steel underneath. But humans don't just dream of something better. We build it, and we help others build it too. The displays changed one final time, showing human fleets moving throughout Council space. But these weren't the raiding parties that had been hitting installations for the past few days. These were massive formations, hundreds of ships moving in coordinated strikes toward the Council's core worlds. You have a choice, Chen said. You can continue this war and watch your empires burn, or you can accept that the age of Council domination is over. Never, the Chancellor screamed. We will crush you. We will hunt down every human ship, destroy every human world. No, Chen interrupted quietly. You won't. Because your own people are already abandoning you. The Council members looked around the chamber and realized that several seats were empty. The Ventai representative was gone. The Rillan delegate had vanished. Even some of the major species were missing members. Where are they? The Queen demanded. Negotiating the surrender of their fleets, Chen replied. Funny thing about oppressive regimes. When they start to fall, everyone suddenly remembers how much they hated being oppressed. She stood up and straightened her uniform. You have 72 hours to consider my offer. After that, we stop asking nicely. The transmission ended, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, across hundreds of worlds, the galaxy was already changing. The ancient world of Concordia had never seen warships in its skies. For 10,000 years it had been the peaceful capital of galactic civilization, where disputes were settled by discussion and law rather than violence. Now, human fleets surrounded the planet like a steel embrace. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as more ships arrived each hour. Not just human vessels, but ships from dozens of species that had thrown off Council rule. Rillan destroyers flew alongside human cruisers. Ventai fighters escorted converted mining ships that still bore the scars of their recent battles. Admiral, her communications officer reported, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 more Council installations across the sector. The Torvan 6th Fleet has laid down arms. The Luminian Defense Corps is requesting terms. Chen nodded calmly. Accept all surrenders. Treat prisoners according to the Galactic Convention. No revenge, no executions, just justice. She turned to the main display, which showed Concordia floating peacefully below them. The planet looked exactly as it had when she first visited as a young diplomatic attaché 30 years ago. Crystal spires reached toward the stars. Massive gardens sprawled between governmental complexes, and the Great Council chamber sat at the center of it all like a jewel. But everything had changed. Signal from the surface, her officer announced. The Council is requesting a meeting. Just the Council? Chen asked. No, Admiral. Representatives from 43 species, including several we've never heard of before. Chen smiled. Put me through to the Council chamber. The great chamber that had intimidated her so much months ago now seemed smaller somehow. The 12 ancient species that had ruled the galaxy sat at their circular table, but they were no longer alone. Beings from across known space filled the observation galleries, former client races, independent worlds, and species that had been suppressed for so long that the Council had forgotten they existed. The crystalline chancellor's light was dim, almost defeated. "Admiral Chen, you have won. What are your terms?" Chen walked slowly around the chamber, looking up at the galleries filled with beings whose ancestors had dreamed of this moment for centuries. "My terms are simple. The council is dissolved. All species are granted immediate independence. All restrictive treaties are void." "Impossible," the Torvan fleet commander growled, though his voice lacked its usual authority. "The galaxy needs order. Without the council, there will be chaos, war." "There will be freedom," interrupted a new voice. A small-scaled being had stood up in one of the galleries. Chen recognized the species, Morali, one of the first races the council had contained 3,000 years ago. For 3 millennia, the Morali representative continued, "We have waited for this day. We remember what it was like before you decided our fate for us." Murmurs of agreement echoed from throughout the galleries. Species after species stood up to speak. The Kalari talked about forced labor in crystal mines. The Ventai described centuries of technological suppression. Even some of the newer races shared stories of council guidance that had crushed their dreams of exploration and growth. The Nexari Queen's compound eyes surveyed the crowd. "You speak of freedom, but freedom leads to conflict." "We prevented wars. You prevented life," said another voice from the galleries. This time it was a Zephyrian, one of the Chancellor's own species. "You decided that peace was more important than progress, order more valuable than dreams. You turned the galaxy into a museum." Chen watched as more and more council species joined the voices calling for change. The great deception was over. For centuries, the council had claimed to represent the will of all galactic civilization. Now it was clear that they had only represented their own fear of change. The Voidwalker's shadow form rippled with something that might have been sadness. "We brought stability. We ended the chaos of the early ages. And in doing so, you ended everything else," Chen replied. "But that's not why I'm here today." She activated her personal display, showing the star charts that had been displayed in this chamber months ago when the council voted for Containment Protocol 7. But now the charts looked completely different. Instead of showing council territories in red and human space in blue, they showed something new. Green markers covered thousands of worlds. Some were human colonies, but most were not. They were worlds that had chosen freedom, worlds that had joined what humanity was calling the Galactic Federation. "I'm not here to conquer you," Chen continued. "I'm here to invite you to join us." The silence in the chamber was absolute. The Chancellor's crystal form chimed with confusion. "Join you? We are your enemies. We tried to contain you, control you. You made a mistake," Chen said simply. "A big one. But humans believe in second chances. We believe people can change even entire civilizations." She gestured to the star chart. "The Federation is based on principles your species helped develop, even if you forgot them along the way. Self-determination, mutual cooperation, the right of all beings to choose their own destiny." "But we fought you," the Torvan fleet commander said. "Many of our people died in this war." "Many of our people died too," Chen acknowledged. "But this war was never about revenge. It was about freedom. And freedom means the freedom to choose a different path." President Torres appeared on the communication screen, broadcasting from Earth. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began. "Today marks the end of one age and the beginning of another. The age of imposed order is over. The age of chosen cooperation begins now." He looked directly at the council members. "To the species of the former council, we offer you membership in the Galactic Federation as equal partners. Your experience, your knowledge, your perspectives. The galaxy needs all of these things, but it needs them freely given, not imposed by force." The Luminian representative's energy form pulsed thoughtfully. "And if we refuse? If some of our species choose to remain independent, then you remain independent," Chen replied. "That's what freedom means." "The right to say no," she smiled. "But I hope you'll say yes. Humanity didn't fight this war to rule the galaxy. We fought it to free the galaxy. And a free galaxy is stronger when all its people work together by choice rather than compulsion." The vote, when it came, was not the swift, unanimous decision that had characterized council votes for millennia. It was messy, complicated, and took 3 days of debate. Some species joined immediately. Others asked for time to consult their people. A few chose to remain independent, and their choice was respected. But in the end, 9 of the 12 former council species chose to join the Federation as founding members alongside humanity, and 41 other races. The ceremony took place in the same chamber where humanity had been condemned to containment, but now the circular table was gone, replaced by a larger arrangement where every species sat as equals. The symbol of the Federation, a circle of stars representing unity through diversity, hung where the Council's stern eagle had once proclaimed dominion. Admiral Chen, now Secretary General of the Galactic Federation, stood before the assembled delegates. Beings who had been enemies months ago now worked together to write the laws that would govern a free galaxy. The Council made one fatal mistake, she said in her inaugural address. They thought strength came from control. They believed order required submission. They were wrong. She looked out over the assembly, seeing humans and Zephyrians working side by side, Nexari and Torvin sharing research data, former slaves and former masters building something new together. True strength comes from cooperation freely given. Real order emerges from justice willingly accepted. And the greatest power in the universe is not the ability to force others to obey, but the ability to inspire them to dream. The applause that followed wasn't the polite, measured approval of council sessions. It was loud, chaotic, enthusiastic, the sound of free beings celebrating their freedom. Outside the chamber, ships from dozens of worlds prepared to depart for home. They carried news that would spread across the galaxy within days. The Age of Empires was over. The Age of Federation had begun, and at the center of it all, humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or rulers, but as the species that had reminded the galaxy what it meant to be free. The Council's fatal mistake had become the galaxy's greatest opportunity, and the story of what free beings could accomplish together was just beginning.